the Trainer sessions, this is for you. So anyone that's subscribed to our channel or anyone that just is stumbling upon this right now, you can ask dog training questions, questions about yoga, dog yoga, or about lifestyle with your dogs. So we host these Ask the Trainer sessions once a month and really open it up to you. So I'm happy to answer any questions regarding those topics for you. With that being said, I also come up with a few topics of my own that I like to share with everyone. So I'll start on those topics to get our conversation rolling. And from there, you can ask questions about what I'm talking about, right? And you can just throw them in the chat at any time and I'll answer them. Or you can just listen to the topics, ask your questions after, or if you have something really specific, like a burning question that you really want to get out there and make sure I cover in this hour, please just throw it in the chat and I will pause what I'm talking about and we'll get to your questions because that's what this is really for. I had a few things I wanted to talk to you about this evening. So when I come up with topics for these sessions, I like to share this because I think people plan for things differently. We all are organized in different ways and we plan things differently. I usually, when I'm planning for these sessions, sometimes it will be a month in advance. There's certain topics that come up with me when I'm teaching, whether it's yoga or training dogs or questions that people ask me often. Or I might be working with a particular breed that brings up specific things like dog reactivity or sensitivity to environmental stimuli or dogs pulling on leash, right? So different things come up all the time and there can be a theme. So I will take notes over the month and that's how I come up with my topics. The other way I come up with my topics is when I'm working with my own dogs. Some different things will come up for me and I write those down as well. So there were three main things that I wanted to cover with everyone. I was at a trial in New York, not last weekend, the weekend before now. Yeah, so almost 2 weeks ago, with River. And we've been working 2 years on different material and training skills to be able to get out on the field and trial together. So we had a blast doing that. And it brought up some of these topics for me that I wanted to share with you that are really, really important with our dogs. And it comes down to little details, right? We're thinking about working with our dogs. And maybe shifting some of the perspective you have about dog training. I've taught a few classes and I've had people say that to me. I've never taken a class like this, right? And different trainers are teaching different things. So every trainer will have a little bit of a different approach. And mine really focuses around relationship and some of just things that come up with when I'm working with my own dogs or I see when I'm working with other people and their dogs, right? I think they're really important. So that's what I'm going to share with you. So the first is being partners with your dog, teaching your dog to work with you and not for you, right? So there's an important distinction there. Teaching your dog to work with you as your partner, not do things for you. The second is ways to strengthen your relationship with your dog. So we're going to break that down a little bit more because that's quite open-ended and there are a ton of ways to, probably never-ending ways to strengthen your relationship with your dog. But we'll dive into some that are a little bit more tangible for your day-to-day and some things that I do. And yeah, I've got some good ones on that. And looking at your body language and why it matters and what signals and picture are you giving to your dog when you're working with your dog. Our dogs are always observing us. So your dog probably knows you better than anybody else in your life, right? Maybe even more than a family member because they study our behavior quite intensely. Dogs study each other's behavior and have extremely nuanced behavior and communication together. And they try that with us. Sometimes I think they're a little better at that intuition than we are. So we have a lot to learn from them. But your body language really, really matters. And typically when you're working with your dog and you think they know something and it's not going the way you think it should go, it's usually a signal that you may be giving to your dog that you don't realize that you're giving, right? And we do that all the time. I do that all the time, even training my own dogs. Um, it's always a kind of a work in progress. So Tao's hanging out behind me today. Tao's had a long week. We just started teaching at Hartford's Camp Current, which is an awesome, awesome kids camp here in Connecticut. And we've joined their yoga program as co-directors. And Tao comes to work every day with me there. And we practice dog yoga with the kids. So Tao gets to hang out with the kids. They get to learn they how their body language affects Tao's body language, right? And their energy and their breathing. So we do a lot of work where Tao is their mirror, right? So when they're excited, she's excited. And when they're calm, she's calm. I've only been doing that 1 week so far. I have 5 more weeks to go, but we are loving it. So that explains why Tao is sleeping behind me. She's done. This is day 4. She has a 3-day weekend and then we're back at it next week. So she'll spend the weekend swimming and having some fun now that it's summer and she gets to have a break from that. Something I want to touch on with that, she absolutely loves that job. Every day she runs to the door. She knows the routine even after a few days. And she marches down to our outdoor yoga pavilion and she runs right to her bed and she waits for the kids to get there and looks and watches and waits for them. It's adorable. I love it. So I know she really loves her job. But today I noticed after at the last class that she was really tired, right? She was sleeping a lot, because even though she's sleeping in between the classes and during the classes while they're going on, or resting, I should say, um, she does a lot of interaction with people. So that can take a lot out of a dog. So something to keep in mind when you're doing things with your dog is something I keep in mind with Tao is really paying attention to those subtleties and making sure your dog has a break. So if you're working with a dog that's a therapy dog or a service dog, they need off time. They need to really be able to have fun and just kind of cut loose, just like us. So when they go back to do their job, they have some enthusiasm, right? So Tao needs a break. She's going to kind of lay low and we're going to spend some time in the woods and on the water. And that way, Monday, she'll be just as excited to revisit, right? So knowing your dog, making sure there's a balance there. But I just wanted to share that with you because we've been having a lot of fun with that. And that's why she's a little tired. I guess I'm a little tired too. Right? All right, let's dive right into one of our topics. Again, as you're joining here, this is Ask the Trainer. So you can throw in any questions you have at any time, and we'll kind of pause what we're talking about, address your question, and then keep going. So being a partner with your dog, there's different ways and different theories in dog training about how we work with dogs. In my experience, I think the best way is to be a partner, to teach your dog to work with you and want to work with you above all else. So what does that mean, right? There are different ways that we teach our dogs to want to work with us. Because dogs are social creatures, right? They look to us more for and that kind of connection and companionship, even above like treats, for instance. So, at a deeper level, just dogs being social beings and us being social beings, we want that connection. So they're always going to look for that. There is a natural tendency within dogs to seek that connection, I believe, and want to work with you. I think what happens is sometimes our dogs present different things, different behaviors that maybe we've never tackled before or we've never dealt with before, or we're frustrated. And there's a little bit of a breakdown in that connection, a little bit of confusion and kind of a lack of communication. And communicating with each dog is a little bit different. Some dogs work really well for food. There are other dogs that are not treat motivated. Some dogs work well for a toy, others don't care about toys. Some dogs respond really nicely to leash prompts and the pressure of a leash and using your leash as a cue. Other dogs, the second you put a leash on, they're pulling at the end, have a really strong opposition reflex, as we call it. And that can be a point of conflict. Some dogs are really good on leash, but the thought of you letting your dog off leash, you're like, they're never coming back. There's a missing connection, missing piece there. So thinking about your dog from that as a partner, right? They're working with you on things. And when you think about working with your dog in these areas, what I would call conflict in that relationship, That's usually what I'm called to help with behavior. My dog is doing this, my dog is doing that. I'm not sure why, or this is my fifth dog and I've never had anything like this before. It's like, okay, let's look at what's going on there that's not working in that connection. So, teaching your dog to work with you, there are different ways to teach your dog to work with you. And when you think about working with your dog, you want to have a dog that wants to work with you, right? Dogs have their natural tendency to want to work with somebody, right? So, there are dogs that we would say is more biddable, which means you don't need food, you don't need a toy, you don't need anything. You just show up and that dog is looking to you. You can ask the dog for something, and there's a willingness there that just comes naturally. And I think there's a scale of that willingness, right? So we have dogs that are naturally just more willing and easier to train because they're just ready for it. And then we just add different training techniques and styles and rewards and move from there. Then there are other dogs that are more independent. So they're a little less biddable. They're less willing. They're like, there's got to be kind of something in it for me, right? This is, um, all dogs love to learn, but some dogs are like, yeah, I like to learn because there's cookies involved. Tao's a good example of a dog that likes to work for cookies. Tao likes to work, but if she's out in the yard, laying down in the yard, and I want her to come inside, she's like, no, there better be a cookie involved in there, right? So she's that kind of dog. My other dog, River, from puppyhood, I don't even remember using treats to teach him. I did, but he just was like, I want to be with you. I want to follow you around. I want to do things. I want to be wherever you are. And I want to kind of be in that with you. Just a difference in the dog. Not good or bad. It's just really looking at your dog and their willingness to naturally want to be with you and work with you. So it doesn't mean anything you're doing wrong if they don't. Some dogs, you just have to work a little harder. Some dogs like to keep things, so they like to possess them a little bit more. So that's another example. Or Tao, she likes to get a ball and then she wants to go run away and hang out with it. River likes to take a toy and engage me with it just naturally. And I've built on both of that. And I've also taught Tao to engage with me. But again, I'm working against Tao's natural tendency to be like, it's mine, I'm off in the yard, I'm good. Like, that's a lot of effort to bring it back to you to play. So we've worked that in, right? So I can use that as a training tool. Again, not good or bad. It's just knowing your dog and knowing what some of your goals are for your training. So the more we can work with who our dog is, the better we're going to be in terms of our partnership. If we take a dog that has natural tendencies to be something and we try to make it something it's not, can fall apart there, and there can be a strain on that partnership, right? And same goes for us as people. If you're trying to make someone who's really high drive and high energy be low key all day, or maybe work at a desk job, or have to be inside when they're just like have energy and they physically want to move, you're going to have a mismatch. So there's going to be a strain in that lifestyle, right, for that person. So same goes for dogs. Like if they have you can have a great dog, but if the lifestyle is a mismatch, the dog needs a ton of energy, needs to run for miles and miles and miles all day, but lives in an apartment in an area where it has to be on leash, you're going to get some conflict in that. So it's not like necessarily just you and the dog. It can be environmental factors. It can be a lifestyle that also affects that. And within our partnership, it's a partnership because we've got to meet the dog somewhere, and our dogs kind of have to meet us somewhere, right? If we're always meeting our dog's needs, it's kind of out of imbalance in terms of we have to meet our dog's needs. But if we're accommodating our dog a lot and all of a sudden we're like, well, I really like to be able to do these things with my dog, right? Some dogs need a small world, but there's always room to kind of expand that, right? So if it's all one side, it's not going to work. And same with our dogs, right? If our dogs are dictating in the same way, so our dogs, we can be making a lot of accommodations for, right? There might be room, but there's also space to expand with our dogs, right? So making the world bigger and doing more with our dogs. If we can build that relationship, dogs can have more freedom. And I don't mean off-leash freedom. I mean freedom in your life to go do things that you want to do with them. Again, you have to look at what's fair to that animal too, and what's reasonable to ask of them. All right, an animal that's really, a dog that's really low key and low energy is not your dog that's going to run 6 miles every morning with you, right? It's like, it's not even a fair ask if they go for a 20-minute slow pace walk and they're done. It's a mismatch, right? So you have to be mindful of what you're asking your dog to do. What's cool about partnerships, if you have a dog that is in line with your goals and training, with your energy level, whatever those are, it can be a really beautiful partnership that comes along a little more organically, right? There's other partnerships that take a little bit more work, or if you've had a challenging dog, those first few years can be really tough. And then you get to enjoy all of that hard work as they age and you guys settle into your partnership together. But sometimes it's really nice when everything comes into line and you're like, this feels easy. It's like because the dog is doing what it naturally wants to do and you're training it to do those things. So when River and I trial, he was bred to do these type of activities, right? So when I'm teaching him, he's got so much enthusiasm for them, sometimes too much enthusiasm, right? So in our partnership, if I bring a ton of enthusiasm, we're in trouble, right? Because then both of us are kind of screaming at the top of our lungs and out of control. So again, in a partnership, I have to give a lot more of that calm, steady presence to him because he's bringing a lot, right? So that's kind of my give to him in that partnership. If I want our partnership to not have conflict, right? Those areas of conflict are going to be when I'm not calm, which happens because we all have days that we're not. And some days our dogs don't feel well, or they're just off, or they didn't get enough exercise. So they're way, way high energy. And it's a mismatch that day. So you have to look at your relationship with your dog on a timeline as well, and not just look at one day that was off. If in general things are moving in the direction you want them to move, you're good, right? And you have a couple days that seem off, or you're off, your dog's off. The other thing about any good relationship or any good partnership is it takes time. So I know this is something specific to me, but I know it's about like that 2 year mark to three. That 2 to 3 years when I have a dog, whether if it's a dog I had from puppyhood or it's a dog that I adopted, that first couple of years really was that investment in that relationship, right? And that relationship continues and partnership continues to grow. But it's not until I hit that 2 year mark that I'm like, okay, I think we've kind of arrived at something. Some people, when they get a dog, they feel that instantly and they're open to it. For me, when I'm working with a dog, I take them in a lot of new situations. So it's a getting to know you. And how do you react in things? Where can I trust you? Where do you need support? What situations can you be in, and what situations should you not be in? So for me, those first couple years, because you might not see everything in the first 6 months when you're with your dog. You know, maybe I didn't take my dog on vacation with me, and now I did a year later or 2 years later, and I discover something different about them, right? So your dog's going to show you something. I feel like it's our jobs to meet them there. Like, hey, what is that? Can we work with that? Can we expand upon that? So this idea of working with your dog, understand who your dog is and working with them. I want my dogs to want to work. So if it requires a little more motivation on my part, that's what I'll bring to the table, whether it's bringing my energy up, my voice, using treats, using a ball, anything to motivate my dogs to want to do things with me. You want that first. You want a willingness from your dog. And again, that can vary a little bit naturally, but you want to build that with your dog. And then within a partnership, you can also bring in, you have to do these things, right? And how is that different than your dog doing things for you, right? Like I'm giving command and you have to do this because I'm telling you to. I want my dog to want to do that. So if 90% of the time my dog wants to do these things for me, and then there's a 10% of the time where I'm like, you must do that. You have to do that. I know that, and you're not allowed to leave me and go say hi to your dog friend over there. You have to hold that sit. Is the you must and the kind of you have to that you can create with your dog once you have them wanting to do it for you. But if we're always asking our dogs to do for us, like what are we doing for our dogs? Like if we're taking them for a walk, and we're asking a lot of them. You have to walk nicely, you have to pay attention, you have to do all this. Like dogs live for their nose. If we never give them a chance to sniff and earn that, like, yeah, walk really nice with me, and then we're gonna sniff for this next stretch and just like be a dog. Like there's got to be some kind of give and take in that partnership, or it's gonna fall apart a little bit, or there's gonna be conflict there because you're asking so much. You need to do these things for me. And I'd rather have my dogs want to participate with me. They just want to go do everything with me because it's fun for them. And then you can leverage that have to. So if most of the time your dog is willing and wants to, then there's a have to. If you do too much, you have to do this for me, you have to do this, and doing things for you, it will break down your relationship because it's not fun, right? If someone told you, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, I mean, by the fifth you have to, you're like, I'm kind of good. Right? Rather than saying, let's go do this together, or I'm going to show you this, or hey, let's go have some fun. Um, Think of it as an invitation. Hey, we're going to go do this together. Do you want to come do this? Great, let's go have some fun. And being playful with your dog in that regard too. Um, so many times through the years, I've seen um, dog trainers coach people to like be cheerleaders to their dog and like change their voice and be louder, right? And praise, yeah, good boy, good boy, good boy. Um, there is a place for that. But I've seen so many times that it not be natural to somebody where their voice has to go too high to the almost point where it like it cracks or it's just it feels strained. And your dog knows that. Your dog knows your natural voice because you're in your home all the time with your dog. So dogs are so in tune with you that it's more about the emotion you bring to it, and you can build anticipation. Um, like one game I like to play sometimes with River and other dogs is like a chase me game. It's kind of controlled, so it doesn't get too crazy. But I'll look at the dog, like another dog would look at them, and I'm like, "You ready?" And kind of whisper, "You ready? Get up." And then I take off running, or take off with their toy, or play that kind of a game where it's like I'm inviting and I'm engaging them. Because they're social beings, they pick up on that. They know your energy difference. I'm not shouting, I'm almost whispering. Hey. Or if I say to everybody, ready? He's like, oh. He anticipates something's gonna come because usually when I say that, we go do something. So you can use your body language, which we'll talk about in a little bit, um, and your voice in a really authentic way to you. So if you are someone who's loud and you give your commands loud, like your dog's gonna get used to your voice, like always being loud. But with that being said, I had my first dog, and she was a tough dog. She was like all the behavior problems you should have in like all of your dogs in a lifetime in one. So I learned a ton with my first dog, and I had her for 10 years, and we learned a lot about each other for sure, and our relationship definitely in her later years was awesome and really special, and I'm glad we could work towards that because the beginning, like I said, 2 or 3 years were challenging. Um, so with her, I had to, raise my voice a little bit, or maybe I didn't need to because I didn't realize then I didn't really need that. But she'd get into trouble, and I'd have to call her across the house, um, and then I adopted a second dog. So I got a Mastiff, and I'm thinking, oh, it's this big 110-pound Mastiff. Um, I raised my voice to tell the other dog to get out of the garbage or whatever she was getting into, and she was very overwhelmed by that. So she kind of paused, took a step back, kind of got really low, was like really like nervous. And she taught me like, oh, I just don't ever have to raise my voice like that. Um, and turns out I didn't need to with my first dog either, right? You learn with each dog. So using your voice, if you pay attention to how your dog responds to you, and if you're getting the desired response, it can be very natural. It doesn't have to be really loud. Even if you're upset at your dog, like, you can like look at your dog. If you're upset at them, it's almost like a mom looking at their kid. Like, the look from your mom. It's like, ooh, or your dad, that look you get, or like, uh-oh. Um, it's kind of like that parent look. You look at your dog, and they know, they're like, oh, that was not right. Sometimes with River, I just say, nope, nope. Like if he does the wrong thing or he breaks, you just, I'm like, nope, come back here and try it again, bud. Like I don't have a harsh correction. There is no, there is no coming down on him. It's just he's offering things, or he got excited and he broke. It's like I want him to be excited to do that. Just say, hey, nope. That's all it took, right? So in 20 years of working with dogs, I've come a long way from learning my first, second dog about that to just the nuance that you can have, right? So even thinking about that in your partnership, like how your energy and your presence affects your dog, how your voice affects your dog, and how much do you really need? Could you do it in a quieter way, right? So the more aware we are of ourselves, the more aware we are of our dogs. So that's talking a little bit about partnership. Again, if you have questions, you can throw them in the chat as we're going. I want to just tie right in. I'm going to skip over ways to strengthen your relationship, but talk about body language because we're starting to talk about our voice. And your voice is one way of communicating to a dog, for sure. But the biggest way dogs communicate with us is through u- use of body language and our body language. So many times, I say almost always, I'm teaching hand signals to a dog for behaviors. Or if I'm luring a behavior, I'm always explaining when we take the food away, this is the hand motion, and then we just label it with words. So, especially when I'm working with young puppies, in a session, I might teach a puppy 10 new things, right? When I'm working with someone and we go through and we're using all food lures a lot of times. Um, that even after I work with somebody, maybe a week or two later, we'll be pulling the food out of it and starting hand signals because dogs follow our bodies and our body language, right? And even below that, what I've discovered in teaching dog yoga with my own dog Tao and River, and also with other people and their dogs, is they read like our body language on an energetic level. Like they're aware of your breath, they're aware if you're holding your breath, and that's all signals to your dog about whether you're relaxed or not. So you can kind of fake it till you make it a little bit with some of the body language. Oh, I'm relaxed, I'm this, but dogs just know. They can also their sense of smell is so strong. So if you're stressed, they can smell that, pick up on that. Or if you're feeling really anxious and your dog comes over and they won't leave you alone, right? They're feeding off of your energy. And almost sometimes that can make us more anxious if our dog is getting anxious. But really they're that mirror, they're reflecting it back to you. So your body language is so important. If you stand up nice and tall with your dog, say your dog is in front of you and you stand up nice and tall, your dog is going to look up to you, right? You keep your shoulders back. My head is up. I'm glancing down. If you are back a little, sometimes I'll even like shift my weight back a little if I want to bring a dog into me. If I'm calling a dog to me, that subtle shift draws a dog in. And I know it probably sounds wild, just like literally dropping your shoulders back, but that dogs can read. They can read if you're like this, they can read if you're like this. It looks different, it even looks different, right? As I'm doing it. So thinking about bringing your dog in, your weight shifts back. Dogs use space with each other. If you ever watch a group of dogs play, it's not by accident how they use space. Some are very close and physical. Some keep distance. Some like to chase and then they won't get closer. If your dog is greeting people, there's a natural way they do it. They'll either close that distance fast and come into that person, or they'll stay back, maybe really back if they're nervous, or somewhere in between. All of that. So shifting your weight back. If you go to call your dog and you're leaning forward, right? You're moving into their space. So even though you're calling, if your body language is moving forward, you're really telling your dog to slow down, right? You're taking space. You're telling him to slow down and not come to you as quickly. Versus, come, I'm back here, drawing my dog in. If I want my dog to stay, I might even stay. A little bit of that with my hand signal, stay. Putting body pressure on them, right? Even at a distance. So if you've ever seen people do the dance routines with their dogs, that'd be amazing to watch their body language and how they position their shoulders and how the dogs move because it's all based on their body cues. Um, so with that being said, that's just a simple one. This comes into play when I'm teaching people's dogs to make eye contact with them. So if we're leaning forward, our dogs tend to give that space and they tend to kind of look around. The second somebody shifts back, pulls their head up, chin lifts, and they look down, the dog starts to look up. It's just that natural signal that we're giving them. So that's a subtle way that body language plays in, just in your come command and your stay command, and just in your dog's presence. Um, I work with a lot of dogs that have reactivity to either people or other dogs, and it's coming out of fear and anxiety. Um, or just an overstimulation. Your dog won't focus when they're out. So what happens to us when our dog loses control? Because I run into this with River in some of our training when he gets really, really heightened, is it's hard to stay really calm. So when we're first working with our dogs, there is an element of like, I'm not calm, but I'm going to try the best I can with my body language to change the picture for my dog. because we start to handle ourselves in a different way, standing up nice and tall rather than seeing the dog, getting the grip on the leash, giving them that signal of tension. Yes, you still might be holding that leash hard, but can you stand up nice and tall? Right? Can you drop your shoulders? Can you drop your weight? You take a deep breath, right? Take one breath. All right, let's start from there. Checking ourselves a little bit because that body language really matters um, to our dogs. And a lot of it's like leash reactivity, like they're on a leash, right? And that doesn't allow our dogs to use space how they would like to. So there's dogs that are great off leash. They can even go to the dog park and play. And you put them on a leash and they're like going to lunge and try to like go after every dog, right? Because they can't use space how they want to use space. So every dog is so unique in that. But how you show up really matters. The people that I've worked with dogs that do react and kind of need you to be their rock, there's been a huge transformation in those people as dog owners, trainers, handlers, because they learn that body language. And we start that right away. As I always ask people, how do you feel? They're like, anxious, Stef. Really nervous. Like, we're going to see a dog and this is going to go bad. Yeah. I'll say, like, you're right. Having a dog that reacts is very nerve-wracking, right? You feel out of control. They're out of control. And like, where do we start to chip away at that, right? So just acknowledging where your starting place is. So almost every time I'm working with somebody, how are you feeling? 2 weeks out, I feel, well, better because we're able to do this and this, or I know what to do. So having some skills in place of knowing what we can do gives us that confidence, allows us to relax. So every time you see a dog, this is exactly what you do. You teach your dog, that's exactly what you need to do. Same thing, really consistency builds our confidence and starts to lessen some of that anxiety with our dogs. So that's a good example of body language, that tension we carry, our dogs pick up. People will say it travels down the leash, which yes, but it's beyond that. It's your energy, and that can sound like an kind of like an out there yoga thing, like energy. It's like what you meet people who are high energy, right? They're like, oh, and they're just, they're like the social butterfly in a room of people, like going to everyone, high energy. And then you have people who have quieter energy, right? They're still there in that group, they're present. Then you have people who have lower energy, right? They're just like really calm and they don't react. And sometimes those people are the ones that internalize, and sometimes someone's just really that calm, like nothing really gets them rattled, right? So you'll see that variety in people, but you'll also see that in dogs, right? So when we're working with our dogs, sometimes we can be that high energy and be in that space with our dogs, but so many times we have to drop our energy down and be that calm, really steady presence for our dog. So it's really that energy they're picking up on, because the second we get anxious, we give off something, right? And usually we're holding our breath. When we're nervous or we're scared, we're not breathing open deeply, shoulders back, relaxed, like everything's here, right? Everything's locked in. So even beginning this, just taking deep breaths before you even get your dog out of the car to work with your dog, it's like 3 breaths. I'm like, where am I at? I'll work with people all day long, and then I decide I'm going to work one of my dogs before I get out and get them going. I just sit in my driver's seat of my van. The AC is usually going because it's hot now. Before I'm going to get the dogs out, keeping them nice and cool. And I think about if I'm going to train, like, where am I at? Like, what kind of day? I'm like letting, if there's anything lingering that I'm thinking about from a lesson I just had or something I need to do later, checking in. All right, yeah, I have all that stuff, but like for the next 20 minutes, this is just me and my dog, right? And so for me, breathing helps, and it can just be 3 breaths. We're not saying you need to do a full meditation in your car or something. If you do, great. I mean, you might fall asleep in your car, and that's good. We sleep in the car and camp in the car, so why not meditate? But it could just be 3 breaths. Just like check yourself, like, okay, before you go. It doesn't mean when you're out with your dog that you're not going to be anxious. It doesn't mean it's not going to come back. But that little beginning sets the tone for you as your baseline to come back to. So we're working, sometimes we're working, and that anxiety level comes back. We check in. Okay, what was your starting point? Okay, I was able to take those 2 breaths. Let's take 1 breath and just like drop your shoulders, relax your posture. Give your dog a minute. So body language ties to energy, ties to breath. And the other thing that has really come up for me in the past, like I would say 3 months with people, is intent and intention. Something we talk about in yoga all the time is setting an intention at the beginning of class. And sometimes I get hung up on this because my mind will like start to go on like six different things about what I'm thinking about for an intention. Like, oh, I'd really like to be able to just be present in this practice, or I'd really like to slow down, or I'd really like to breathe deeper in this practice, or I'm thinking about a loved one and I want to send them love because I'm really worried about them and I just want my practice to be about that today. So like I'll filter through that within like the I don't know minute we have to 30 seconds to set our intention. And then sometimes with an intention it can just be one word. I'm like, oh, peace, good, perfect, nice and simple. So sometimes just meeting yourself where you're at and checking in. Why I bring up intention, we do it in yoga, but it really has shown up for me in working with people and their dogs. So it's really big when you've had a pattern in your relationship with your dog of something happening over and over and over and over again, where if you have a dog that reacts to something, so let's say let's just use this dog reactivity, your dog is reactive to other dogs. It started to become a problem. Now almost every dog you see, they're having a problem with. What we kind of accidentally do is set an intention that it's going to happen with our body language, but literally in our minds. So usually what happens is we see the dog, we've got our leash, we've assumed our, kind of death grip on that leash, and we go, this is going to go bad. And like literally heard that out of multiple people's mouth, like this is going to go bad. I'm like, it's not going to go bad. And then we talk about intention. That type of intention, like we set intentions all the time. We do it in a yoga practice and we do it in other areas of our lives. Maybe if you're taking on a big project, you can kind of associate it sometimes with projects like of goals, but to me, it's a little bit deeper than that, right? The intention is a little bit more depth than just like, oh, I have a goal to finish this by then. It's like, how do I want to do that is the intention. So shifting from that, once people start to have tools to do when they see a dog, it shifts from, oh, this is going to go bad to, oh, I know exactly what to do. And I've had people say it out loud, multiple people, where like when you're out with your dog, just say, I've got you. To your dog, I've got this. I've got you. Just something like that can shift the intention from this is going to go back to I got you. If someone, touched your arm or grabbed your hand and says, I got you, you're like, cool, I can relax, right? Something like that, setting the intention, totally different. Does not mean that your dog might not react, right? That could still happen, but you're not putting it out there. If you say it's going to happen and then the body language matches, it's probably going to happen, right? And that perpetuates that rather than saying, I've got you, I got this, and then knowing what to do. But the key is knowing what to do. So if you're working with a trainer who specializes in reactivity, or with a lot of people who have reactive dogs. So we work together and, okay, you see this? I've got this. Say it out loud to you, say it out loud to your dog. Eventually it becomes second nature, where it's just in your mind. You don't have to say it out loud, but so many people say it out loud, right? I still do that with my dog. Before we went trialing, I always tell him I'm proud of him, right? I always say, I'm proud of you. You did such a good job. You did such a good job. So this time instead I said, I'm proud of us. I looked at him, I'm like, I'm really proud of us. Like we made it. We did all this work to get here. Now let's go have some fun. Literally said it out loud as we were warming up, and we had the best time. It was intention, right? It's not just being proud about him. It's being proud about what I did as a partner. Really, really important distinction. That intention is huge, right? Bringing that into the day-to-day life. So that's what I love about yoga so much is, and everybody asks us about dog yoga. Like, what is this dog yoga thing? I'm like, it's really about partnership. It's about training your dog. It's about being in connection. It's about a practice that allows you to slow down so you can find that space with your dog. And then just like a regular yoga practice, take it to the rest of your life. If you can find a calm connection and you can find that space within you, you can support your dog anywhere. I'm asked that a lot because I take my dogs everywhere with me when I travel and I go different places, and that connection exists. Without that connection, I wouldn't be able to do as much with them, right? So yoga is a great way to do that. Thinking about your intention when you go into something. It's so fun to practice with our dogs because we want the best for our dogs. So sometimes it's harder to set intentions for ourselves, but it's easier to set intentions if it's surrounding our dog, right? Sometimes we do more for our dogs than we do for ourselves. So, so important to think about that. The intention you're setting for yourself as a team. Like, I've got you, I've got this, right? That's about you and how you're setting the tone for how your training is going to go. So, that's more about your body language and why it matters. We went a little deep on that to intention. There's no question. So, I'm just going where I'm going with it. There's layers, right? There's our physical body, and there's all those layers. Again, your dog is reading all of it, right? So you start with the outer picture and you work your way in. Over time, that just becomes your new natural baseline with your dog. All right, ways to strengthen your relationship. So I'll spend maybe, I don't know what time it is, maybe 10 minutes on this, and then we'll open it up to questions because I see some of you on here, and I want to make sure we leave some time. Ways to strengthen your relationship. So I was teaching a canine fitness class last night, and that's why I wrote this one down today. Like I said, sometimes my ideas for these come like the day before. And it's teaching canine fitness, which I love to teach. It's just, again, another way to look at your dog and work with your dog, strengthening your relationship, building your dog's confidence. And someone was new to class. We had a smaller class. Somebody was new, and she said to me, I just realized I could be doing so much more with my dogs. Like, wow, there's so much more to be doing and thinking about and bringing into their life. And then it was a little bit followed with a hint of like, I'm not doing enough, right? There's so much out there, and I'm like, doing enough, right? Is it enough? And this was coming from somebody who does a ton with their dogs, hiking and training classes and different things. But sometimes when we try something new, like canine fitness with our dogs, it brings that up. Like, wow, I never realized that there's so much. And fitness with our dogs is never ending too. So it's kind of like once you open that door, you can just keep going and keep exploring that. And I thought it was really interesting. And what I said to her is, you do enough. Just being with your dogs and living your lifestyle with your dogs is enough, right? You don't need to do more. They have full lives. We put this pressure on ourselves sometimes when we're working with our dogs, if you're really into your dogs. And if you're tuning in here, I know you're really into your dogs because we're talking about like deeper stuff and relationship. We tend to think more is what we need to do, right? More of this, more classes, more training, different things, variety. Some dogs like that variety, but something that I want you to think about is your lifestyle that you already live with your dogs and little ways to enrich it. So instead of adding to your plate these extra things you have to do, you're already living this great life with your dog. Think about little things that you could do at the start of your day. So what I like to do is the dogs eat twice a day, and you can use your dog's food to do a little bit of canine fitness. So people have taken classes with me or do some of my canine fitness videos, learn those skills and sprinkle them in their day. So before you feed your dog breakfast, you can do a little bit of that work, right? So it's just adding a little sprinkle in there. Every day is a little different, something different. Building in with your dog, building relationship, having your dog sit and wait for their meals, right? If you typically are in a rush in the morning and just come throwing the food down, and having your dog sit and wait, maybe give you eye contact, finding a little moment of connection there that exists right throughout your day, and then let your dogs eat. Again, we're not adding more. It's just adding, I don't even say it's adding. Maybe it's like enhancing, right? What you already do. Like you're already feeding your dog, but these are a couple ways you can incorporate that in. Whenever you're walking your dog, throw in some obedience, right? To strengthen your relationship. So it's not just like you go out for a walk, and there might be parts of your walk that you're tuning out, meaning you're in your head, right? You're thinking about your day. It's meditative for you. I hike with my dogs. I do that all the time. I'm kind of watching them, but it's more for me to kind of decompress too. So there is that. But then there's also on our walks and our hikes where my dogs are working with me, right? To strengthen that relationship. I don't want them to think when they're out on hikes, it's a free for all. Because then when I need them to come, they're off swimming and whatever. rolling in the mud or finding, fish on the riverbank or whatever they're doing, whatever they're doing. Um, which they can have all of that if within our relationship, when I call them, they'll come to me, right? So establishing that relationship there and that level of partnership there where you can have a lot of freedom, but we also will work together. So my dogs on walks know that they have to check in, they have to kind of keep track of me. Um, your dog's going to have their natural range. River stays closer. He checks in a bit more. Tao range is far. She's always been that way. Um, and if I need them, I'll have them, do really functional obedience. Come. Sometimes I have them downstay so I can peek around a corner to make sure there's not another dog coming. And then I release them. We play, bring toys on my walks. My dogs are a little older. I don't always bring treats, right? Like at this stage, they'll do things for really just like the enjoyment of hiking, getting the freedom, right? They come to me, I release them. That's their reward. But still to this day, Tao's going to be 11. I don't even know how many days. Like 9 days. She'll be 11. I still will have like leftover something that's really good, some leftover meat or special treats, and I'll stick them in my pocket. And I call her, and one day she just gets really high rewards to keep that behavior strong. So even that little piece, you're already doing walks with your dog. You're already doing things with your dog. Adding something high value again. Yeah, like maybe you haven't done that since your dog was a puppy, but why not? Right? Keep it sharp. And with older dogs, it's really important to have that enrichment, right? To kind of keep them mentally sharp and them excited to keep doing things, right? And keeping their focus because as they age, their bodies change and their minds can change too. So we want to give them enough enrichment to keep it interesting and kind of keep that zest for doing like what you love to do with your dog there. Right. But the biggest thing I want to address with strengthening your relationship is rest. What? That's probably pretty shocking. Out of everything is rest. Something that's taken me, I'm 39 now, something that's taken me like a lifetime to learn. I have always been high energy. When I was a little kid, my parents would sit me down to watch a show with my sister, and I would have like the dollhouse out and coloring books, and then I'd be drawing, and then I'd be in the kitchen while my mom was painting, like getting all my stuffed animals in the paint. And um, my mom still talks about it. She's like, "You were just so busy." Like I'm still busy. Like I get up in the morning and I'm like, let's take on this day. Like see not how much we can fit in, but like what we can do and how we can live, right? So that's shifted. It used to be how much I could fit in, right? But as time's gone on, it's more what can I do with this day? And we all have different energy levels. So I embrace that I'm high energy. But one thing that's been really, really challenging, so I don't become burnt out, because that's happened. There's been a pattern of I go hard and I burn out, is rest. So it's really been only the past 2 years that I really built in rest. So sometimes that looks like for my dogs is we're done at 7:30 at night. Maybe not as much when it's light out. Maybe we might be on the deck or something in the summer. But in the winter, I get into bed and I read and the dogs hang out with me and I just relax and really just go to bed really early. I might not fall asleep till 10:30, but just allowing my body to really power down and be in that stillness and be kind of in that space, and let the dogs have that too, and teach them that yeah, we're not out in the yard till 10 o'clock at night and working in the gardens or whatever we're doing. We have that element of rest. So for me, when I carve out rest, I try to do a little bit each day. Not always in balance, but I'll take these big pieces of rest where I'll even, especially like I'll sleep like 12 hours, 1 or 2 nights a week just to energize because that's how my body works and that's how who I am. But rest is one of the most important things you can do for yourself and for your dog, right? Because the thought of adding more and more and more um, to our plates and to our dogs' plates, like we already live in such a fast-paced world that rest is really important. And sometimes it's easier if we know our dogs need the rest. And then, okay, yeah, they're just lounging. Like, yeah, I'm going to watch movies all afternoon, or I'm going to take a bath, or I'm going to go. Sometimes it's restful taking like a class is restful for you, right? If it's quiet and get your mind thinking about something else other than work, whatever you find to be restful, right? And that kind of restores you is so important to put into your life. And that's the biggest thing I practice is not doing more. It's like the really doing less. And it's a daily reminder. It's like a daily intention for me. But just like we started our conversation tonight, Tao's been working with kids at camp all week, and she's tired, right? So I'm pretty tired too, right? Because this is our first time doing it this week, first time joining the camp this year. And we're absolutely loving it. But to match it, so the next day we go in tomorrow, and then we have the weekend off. Um, really resting is so important. So it's like I know she needs that, but if my dog needs it, there's a good chance that I need it too, right? So think about that rest in your relationship. I know some of you have been following on Facebook and Instagram. Appreciate all your support and comments to get to what we did. So thank you. Um, but we went really hard, and it, 3 training sessions. I had to fit that into my day, and really for a week we didn't do much. We had yard time. We did paddle boarding Sunday. He's been swimming, and I did a little bit of training yesterday, but just like fun for his toy, like just really low key, to give him a break, both of us a break, right? A mental break and a little bit of a physical break, and just have some fun together. So that'll kind of be my plan for most of July, honestly, with my dogs, is just enjoying the summer. I want to try to get out on the water as much as I can. Behind our house is a river, and it's not a really fast-paced river, so I'll take the paddleboard out and the dogs will swim. So if you don't follow us on Instagram and Facebook, hop over to Tao Dog Yoga and join, because we'll post a lot of our adventures there. And we'll be paddleboarding on the river. The dogs will run the riverbank and swim and just have a really good time. And um, see a lot of wildlife, a lot of birds while we're out there. Just really peaceful. So there can be phases of your life that look different with your dog. And you can incorporate them in. Sometimes I just paddle by myself, right? And that can be really nice. But I really love to get out there with the dogs. And that way we all come home, we're tired, we're ready to make dinner and kind of relax for the night. So looking at it, you don't always have to do the same thing. You don't always have to go as hard. And that rest, I've had people, is so important. And I've had people say to me, one of my family members is sick, and I just have not been able to do the walks I've been doing with my dogs. And they were really stressed about it. And I told them, I was like, your dogs are going to roll. Like, they're going to figure it out. They're going to be flexible. And they absolutely were, for 3 really intense months for that person. And they were with her through every step. And they might have only got 2 walks instead of her usual 4 or 5 very ambitious walks. And that was just fine, right? They adapt. Your dogs just want to be with you, and they just want to be, again, your partner and share that time with you. So giving yourself that flexibility to be on and then to really be off, right? Especially when you need it the most. So we'll open it up to some questions. I'll hang here for a few minutes if you have anything. And this is live, but we record these. So this will be posted to our channel. My plan is after July to really get rolling on our YouTube content here. To have a weekly video come out that's just a different yoga practice for you. I'll share some paddleboarding. We'll do some meditation with our dogs, and try to have a more consistent practice to roll out to you every week. We'll still do these live, and then I'd like to incorporate in, especially as we move into kind of August, fall, and that, some more live practices on here so we can do yoga together with our dogs. If you're watching because you don't have a dog yet, and you're going to be getting a puppy, stay tuned. All this information can really help you, even if you don't. And you can always join all of our yoga practice, learn what it's about, and then when you get your dog, just incorporate your dog in. So those are some of the YouTube channel plans, right? It's just to kind of get our practice a little bit more regular right here.